don't eat that. Oh, now it's stuck to you, honey. Oh, honey, don't eat the fuzz on the floor. I don't even know what that was. Hello and welcome. It's the end of 2018. This year was so fast. Okay, here's the thing. As you get older, time goes faster because you've experienced more time, and so nothing is new, or little is new, or you are experiencing something new and it increases the speed of time because it's overwhelming. Anyway, I had a lot of favorites this year and I wanted to share them with you. They're mostly media-based, but there's a couple of non-media-based things that I really love and I'm excited about. Here we go. We're going to talk about podcasts, movies, music, books, and that's it. Yep, that's it. Okay, so let's start with podcasts. I am obsessed with podcasts. I am constantly listening to podcasts largely because I need a distraction, and music sometimes isn't enough. That's fine. One of my favorite podcasts, and I know that I am not alone in this, is Armchair Expert, hosted by Dax Shepard and Monica Padman. It's an interview podcast, but the way that Dax goes about the interviews is so open and kind and honest and transparent, and it's really just so beautiful, and it makes me feel better, and it gives me greater perspective, and I just feel like all of these things together are just making the podcast listening universe a better place. And this is not the first interview-based podcast I listened to, but it might be the best, which is weird to say because he's joining the game so late, but I think it has a lot to do with his personality and his background and his perspective on human existence, but it's so good. I've loved This American Life for years, and we all know that with the success of This American Life, the market for storytelling podcasts just grew very high. And when they interviewed Ira Glass, which was a really big treat, on Armchair Expert, Dax asked Ira if he was annoyed that people got into this game, and Ira said no, because the audience is so big and I love that they're doing this. It needs to be done. Does anyone do it better than they do? I don't know. But Radiolab is pretty close. Their hosts are just so phenomenal, and the way that they cut their stories together with the interviews is so tight and seamless. It's amazing. Finally, okay, this is not a podcast that you're going to want to engage in because it's such a good listen. Its intended purpose is for the opposite of that. The podcast is called Sleep With Me, and it is actually a sleep aid podcast. So the host of this podcast, whose name I don't even know because I'm not interested enough in the podcast to learn it, has devised a way to speak us to sleep. He speaks in a really low tone, in a really, interrupted, I guess, way, where it's so tedious and banal that you can't pay attention and you end up falling asleep. And he doesn't claim that this helps everyone, but a lot of people find that having some sort of white noise sound is really helpful, but you can't listen to regular podcasts because the stories are too good and you pay too much attention to fall asleep. So Sleep With Me, here's a little glimpse at what he sounds like.
And he says, you got to relax. And Doug says, no, man, I can't.
It's really successful. I also should assert that I'm not sure what the legal implications of playing that are, but I'm doing advertisements, so I feel like there's some sort of leeway. So I got one of those apps that It's a tiny kitten. Can we say hi? Come here. Hi. I downloaded one of those apps that breaks down how much time you spent listening to albums or songs or whatever on Apple Music. Because Spotify does that for you, but Apple Music does not, which I think, guys, you have very smart people working for you. Get on it. We want to know what our final tally is. Anyway, by far above any other album, I spent so much time listening to Dirty Computer by Janelle Monáe. 30 hours of my year was spent listening to this album, and I believe it came out in May. This album is unbelievable. First off, it is musically just so good. People are are so creative and inspired. She also was working on this album in collaboration with Prince before he died, and there's a lot of Prince in it. Janelle Monáe specializes in the concept album, and so this album like breaks down the Black female experience, and in just such a phenomenal way that is both clinical and personal and emotional and jarring. It's so good. It's so good. She has a Grammy nomination right now for Best Album, and I'm really happy about that. I love her. I love her so much. Also, my second most engaged album this year was 7 by Beach House. I came into Beach House via Busy Phillips, who is gonna make another appearance in this video. Busy loves Beach House. She's always loved Beach House. This album means so much to me. It came into my life at a weird time, and it allows, I feel like Beach House in its ethos allows you to engage with everything you're feeling without attaching itself to those emotions, so you can continue to listen to it even after those emotions have passed, which is a really strong quality in music. Also, then I read a bunch of articles on which other albums to listen to, and the answer is all of them. But by far their most beloved album is Thank You Lucky Stars, which I am obsessed with, and I would listen to probably if instead of a last meal I could have a last listen, it would be this album, which is saying a lot. Is it this album? It might be Dirty Computer. I don't know. That's a thought. So I set a reading goal of 20 books this year, which isn't even 2 books a month. But I barely made it. I actually am not yet finished, but I'm reading 2 graphic novels that I'm pretty confident I can finish by the end of the year. I just sometimes read really heady books that take me a long time to get through. Little fires everywhere, I'm talking to you. Nevertheless, these are my faves. Busy came out with her book, This Will Only Hurt a Little, at the end of October, and it is so good. Her writing is so approachable, so clear and funny, and I really, my favorite part of this book is the way that she incorporates dialogue and the way that she tells stories through dialogue. So on the back, she has blurbs by Miranda July and her mom and Tina Fey, and Tina Fey says, "You guys, Busy is a legit reader with a voice clear as a bell. This book is honest, funny, intimate, and well observed by a person who has observed some shit." And she's right. Busy's been through it, and the way that she brings that forward is so beautiful. She poured a lot into this book. I watched it on her Instagram stories, and I have been a fan of Busy for not as long as she has been around. I feel like I came into her very late, but she's so great, and I really encourage people to check this book out. I don't know, it's relatable even if you're not into celebrity bios. Calypso, David Sedaris' latest book. David Sedaris has experienced a lot of loss in the past few years with the suicide of his sister and the loss of his dad. Sedaris has set his formidable powers of observation toward middle age and mortality. Honest, tragic. There's one story in here called The Perfect Fit. I was crying reading it. It's so funny. These are my books. My favorite movie of the year has to be A Quiet Place. I sat unmoving after that movie for like a solid 10 minutes. Like I couldn't move physically. I could not move. It was so jarring and beautiful and creative and scary, and the silence was very weird. Like you felt it, and it was a physical weight in the room. Sometimes stillness and quiet. Same thing with the movie Arrival, which was my favorite movie 2 years ago, is that the silence is what makes it so amazing. Other shout outs, First Man, that movie is beautiful. Star is Born, I don't want to talk about it. It's too much. I went with my friend Sierra, and I came away from the movie and I said, Sierra, I can't believe we survived that. We were so emotionally involved. It was unreal. Unbelievable. Underrated movie of the year, I Feel Pretty. Everybody hated that movie. I don't know why. It was so funny. Michelle Williams was a vision. It was great. It was so good. People are short-sighted. People need to have an initial reaction, have an initial opinion, sit on it, engage with the actual source material, think about it, and then form a full opinion. Fully formed opinions are what we need more of in this world. Anyway, 2018 was a weird year, and I want to say that I'm excited for 2019, but I'm a little nervy. I'm going into my last 3 terms of grad school. Very excited to be done that. The amount of nothing that you can do when you're not in school is something that I am invested in. Yeah, there could be a potential high number of changes this year, which is always a little bit foreboding. But I have a new niece or nephew on the way. I just keep saying niece because I'm pretty confident it's gonna be a niece, and I'm very excited about that. So I have lots of crafting to do, blankets, embroidery, etc. So there's a lot coming up. I have committed to 300 miles this year. Last year I did 200, but that was my goal, was 200, but I ended up running 250. So I feel like I can do 3, especially because I'm really fast now. All right. Well, Happy New Year, folks. I hope that you had a fun little evening. Thank you for watching. You're fun and cute. I will see you in the new year.